Having everything figured out would be great in a perfect world. However, we don't live in a perfect world, and this is often an unattainable mark to try and do, especially if you're setting out on something new. Today, I want to talk about why it's okay to not have everything figured out. And so if you're new here, my name is Mike, and if not, welcome back to my channel. So when we think about the idea of why it's okay to not have everything figured out, I want to break this down a little bit. A lot of times in life, and I don't like to think in, black and white, but for this example, I'll give this. You often find kind of people that fall into two groups. Ones that will just be okay jumping in and doing something and kind of jumping into the unknown, for lack of better words, with little information, and those that seek to have every piece of information filled in before they do something. Now, on the first side, we're talking about people that are okay, for instance, getting a piece of information, getting an idea, and then just running with it, and they try it. These people a lot of times often understand, like, well, they're going to make mistakes. They're going to have setbacks. They're not going to get it perfectly right out of the gate. But what they do is they make an attempt. They learn something. They go back, make another attempt. They make a mistake. They go back and change that. And they keep doing this, which then helps with progress and helps with growth. It helps get you towards what your goals are. And then on the other group of people, much like myself, and maybe like you watching this video too, we lean towards more of perfectionism, right? So it's tough to get started and do this first thing because before we do it, we have, 100 questions that pop into our head. And instead of figuring out these through action, we'll talk about it. We'll think about it. We'll research it. We'll try to answer every question we have. We'll try to get past every challenge we think may come up. And while that would be great to have all this information, I don't know if it's really realistic, because especially if it's something new, you're not going to know every single piece of information or anything else that there is to know. And even if you think you do, you're likely going to get on your path and realize very quickly that you didn't think about something, right? And so sometimes trying to understand everything before you get in there is exactly what leads to inaction, because you can always find another reason to not do it. You can always ask another question. You can always think of another a stop or a speed bump or a hold up on the process for something that you want to do. So why it's okay to not have everything figured out, move on? Well, I think that in general, it can lead to bigger progress, growth, and really just understanding a little bit more about yourself as you go on there. I want to give a recent example for something that I chose to do here for myself in my life. And I'm not unique in this. I've seen plenty of content and different people talk about this too. And that is, I put my notice into my job. I put my 2-week notice in and I don't have another job lined up. Now, I'm going to put a caveat there and say that I'm pretty good with, saving money. And I always make sure that I have at least a little bit of a reserve fund on the side to take care of myself in case of anything happening in life, right? And having a savings and emergency fund is great. And I wouldn't necessarily advise people to do what I'm doing, but I'm just giving this as an example. I'll be good for a while, right? But what I realized was that the position I was in and just being generally in corporate America and really just doing a job that I don't like, that makes me not feel good every day, it's not for me. And it was affecting me, right? It was affecting my life quality, my sleep, my eating habits, going to the gym and working out, doing all kinds of stuff. Now, I could have stayed and just pushed through it and just dealt with it like a lot of people just do, but I'm not like a lot of people. If you've watched some of the other videos on my channel, you can kind of see that. And I just really don't like to do what everybody else does. I like to do what's best for me, right? And I would encourage you to always do the same for yourself. So with that comes a lot of uncertainty. I definitely don't have everything all figured out, right? It's easy to stay in a job or a relationship or something else that you don't like, because you're sitting there saying, well, what happens if I move on and, I don't think about this? What happens if I don't have the money here? What happens if I don't have a backup? What happens, if I think I'm gonna go right and I'm gonna end up left? Whatever you want to fill in with that. The point being is that you can sit there for forever and always find new reasons to not do something that seems scary because you don't have it all figured out. You could sit there your whole life and think and think and think and do this, and you will never get to a point of 100% certainty really with these things. And in fact, that kind of reminds me of a quote that I heard before saying that 100% certainty only exists in hindsight, right? So if anything else, think about that. Because it's like no matter how much clarity or how much you think you know something going into it, you never really know until you do the thing and you look back and say, did that work or did it not? Even if we feel like we're in familiar circumstances, it's unless it's an identical scenario and every single factor and outside variable is the same, it's likely a different scenario. So even if you think you can get to a place where you're going to figure it all out before you do something, chances are you can't. And that's perfectly okay. And that's why I'm making this video, because I think a lot of us really fall into this bucket where we get stuck. And maybe, like I said earlier, perfectionism isn't the perfect way to say it, but I think a lot of us just really want to have that type of certainty that comes with figuring it all out, quote unquote, before we do this thing. Don't put that pressure on yourself. I think it's important to think about what you're going to do before you do it. Give genuine thought to it. I'm not saying just jump and really have no idea and don't ask yourself any questions, but give yourself an ample time, an equal amount of time to kind of sit there and think about what it is you want to do. But then also look at yourself and kind of say, like, I have to kind of stop at a certain point and say, okay, it's time for the action. I've done the planning, I've done the thinking. Now it's time for the action. If you find that, it's been months, years, or maybe even longer than that, you've been going on thinking about the same thing over and over and over. Depending on the decision, I get it, right? Like if you're in a long-term relationship, I'm not saying, all right, give it a month and then just dip out and figure it out. No, I mean, I think it's reasonable to sit there and think, like, if you're thinking about like a big life decision, yeah, give it some time. Don't just on a whim make a decision for something without really kind of giving it the thought and put yourself in a worse position. But if it's something where, like, for instance, you've been in a job for a month and every single day you walked in there, you felt sad, miserable, you're driving to work, you feel horrible, you're driving out of work, you feel bad, it's affecting yourself, your family, your health, and everything. Do you need to give it 2 months? Do you need to give it 6 months of feeling like that? Sometimes things get better, but if there's certain things like that where it's affecting your life quality and following you home and doing stuff, I don't know that you always need to give something that much time to really understand how it's affecting you in a negative way. So this is a very nuanced topic, like a lot of things that I decided to talk about on this channel. And really, you kind of have to just be honest with yourself as a starting point to see what is it that your current situation is. How long have you been involved with it? What are some of the ramifications? Think about these general questions, but don't get to a point where it's been years or a longer of your life where you're sitting there and you're still in the same position and you haven't at least attempted to take some action to get yourself somewhere. I would absolutely love it if there was a way to know that it, like a loading bar on a computer screen where you're loading, you're at 10%, 20, 90, you get to 100. Okay, you're at 100%, time to take some action. But there's just no meter or anything like that in life, not an accurate one, that will tell you when it's the perfect time to take that action and do things. But above all, and if anything else, I think that you really should be fair to yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to ask these questions, but don't let it hold you back. It's totally okay to not have everything figured out. And like I said, whether it's a job, a relationship, moving to a different state, or whatever, you name it, it's totally okay to not have it figured out. But what I will tell you is it's not okay just to stay in one spot and beat yourself up and try to chase this perfectionism, because that's not fair to you. And that's not going to help you regardless of what you think. Just remember, of all, 100% certainty only exists in hindsight. So this is your sign to take some action. Do something with that. Get yourself out of the situation and move on to better things. Life is too short to sit here and dwell on stuff that we can't control, or to waste time doing things that don't serve us in a positive way to move us forward. So if you're still watching this, once again, like I've said before, I'll believe in you, and let's make it happen today. I'm going to see y'all in the next one. Take care. Peace.